What's up guys, Cliff here from the Sunday Drive. Today we're going to be showing you how to change your spark plugs on your 2015 or newer Subaru WRX with the FA20 motor. So we're back working on my brother's 2016 WRX, and today we're installing the NGK96204 spark plugs, and we will have these linked down in the description. And as always, when you go through our links to get the parts, it really does help us out and helps us keep bringing videos like that. So thank you guys for doing that. So in today's video, we're going to be showing you guys how to properly gap your spark plugs as well as get them installed, and let's get started. First, we're going to remove the air intake box. You have two push pins right here. Use a little pry tool. Get those out, like a pry tool like this. We'll have that linked. All right. And then this will just pull out towards the front and up and out. Disconnect your mass airflow sensor on your intake. I like to take a pick tool, slide it underneath, and then that'll release. Now we have a 10mm nut right here we need to remove. And we have a 10mm bolt right down here. Now, as far as I know, this intake box has never been removed from the car. My brother got this new, and the hose clamp is facing straight down, so we can't disconnect the airbox from that hose clamp in its current position. So what we're gonna do is flip these two top latches, and we're gonna separate the box here. And this is the original air filter that is shot. So we are putting a new air intake on this car. So if you watch the video at the link above, we're gonna have a new air intake going in here, and definitely time. And with that, we can pull this out. And now, I'm gonna pull this up and out, and now we can get a tool onto that hose clamp there to remove this. The hose coupling going onto the airbox is very snug. If you've replaced your charge pipe on the car, you'll know that it's kind of a pain. So just work your way around with like a screwdriver. Spread that gap a little bit, and it will come off. All right, there we go. Now, whenever you're working around electrical components, it's a good idea to disconnect your battery. And for this job, we actually need to remove the battery from the vehicle to access the spark plugs anyway. So to start, we're gonna disconnect the negative terminal here, the 10mm. And you can disregard all these wires right here. We installed a light bar and some fog lights for my brother. So there's some extra wires that you probably will not have. That will lift off. All right. And we can disconnect the positive terminal as well. Always be careful when removing your battery to not touch both terminals. Okay. We're gonna remove the bracket that holds it in place. This is also held in by a 10mm. You're gonna wanna hold up on the bracket because it's just a hook that's gonna fall down once this nut is removed. And this hook will come out. Now just pull this handle up here and slide this out of the way, and then you can lift the battery out. This is gonna be a little heavy, so don't hurt your back. And set that safely out of the way. And then we're gonna pull this shroud out. Get this out of here and some of the dirt out. Now we're gonna head over to the passenger side. Remove the two 10mm that hold in the top of your ECU. Make sure your battery is disconnected before doing this. We're gonna remove the two 10mm nuts right here. Now your ECU will just pull up. It's held in by some rubber grommets at the bottom. Just be gentle and careful of your wiring. All right. To give us better access to the back of the ECU, we need to loosen up these wires right here. So the bottom harness goes into this clip right here. So a pick tool or a flathead screwdriver, stick that in the end, and this will open up and release. And the middle harness is held in by a plastic clip right to the left of the first one. If you get a screwdriver on the back side here and press the tabs in, you can start with the top and then go to the bottom and then gently pry this out. This will release. And that gives us a little bit more access to get to the back of the ECU. With that additional access, I was able to release the middle harness. All right. And then we're going to release the top one. Again, there's a clip in the middle you have to press in, and that will release the lever. They're a little stiff on this, given the age. And then you rotate the lever down until you get that click, and that will come out. Now that we have the ECU removed, let me show you how these connections work. There's 3 of them. You have to start at the bottom. You're going to want to press in the center right here, that little clip. You're going to press that in, and then you're going to grab the lever arm and rock that lever arm down all the way to 90 degrees. Right there. And then this will release. Now be very careful where you set your ECU. You don't want this to be exposed to any electricity or anything, obviously, so just set it somewhere safe while you're working on the car. Now we have access to the 2 coil packs. We're going to remove those and be able to get to the spark plugs, and with the battery out on the driver's side, we can get to those plugs as well. Now, given the tight clearances down here, having a compact wrench like this one is super helpful. It's a very low profile. We'll have a link to this in the description, but we definitely put these wrenches to work. It's a set of, I think, 3 of them, and we use these all the time for situations like this. So we're going to take a 10 millimeter down here. Break those free, break your knuckles. Now, these are not super tight, so once you break them free, you can work them out the rest of the way by hand. Just be careful not to drop it, or you're going to be going under the car to remove your belly pan. And then we can wiggle out the coil pack. There you go. And we're going to remove the other coil pack as well. You can kind of just set that out of the way like that. You can obviously disconnect the coil packs if you need to. However, there's plenty of slack to get access to your spark plugs. Now you're going to need a 14 millimeter spark plug socket. This is a swivel end one, which I really like. We'll have that link down in the description. There you go. And that's what a spark plug with 120,000 miles on it looks like. Subaru recommends changing it every 60,000 miles, so it's overdue for sure, but first one out. I was having trouble with that 14 that I was using on the back one here because it was hitting this plate and putting it at too extreme of an angle. It was getting on the socket, but it was hitting the side of the wall. So I just got a regular deep 14 with a small extension, and we're going to put that in there. Now you will need a magnet or something else to get the spark plug out, because you could put some silicone paste or grease on the end of the socket, and that would most likely help the spark plug come out. And get our magnet. Pull it out with the magnet. Now we'll have a shorter 14 millimeter spark plug socket linked in the description that will work here. Unfortunately, my set of spark plug sockets that I normally use was not compatible, so I'd use that one long 14 that I had. Back here, actually. Remove the 2 coil packs from the driver's side. Now, there aren't many times where a wrench like this comes in handy, but when it does, it really does come in handy. So this is a double jointed 3/8 ratchet, which has helped me get down in there. So I have one of these linked in the description. There you go. Now, just like with the last one, I'm gonna have to get something else, a magnet in there to pull it out. Now, this back one's gonna be fun to get into, so I'm gonna try to figure this out. So I'm gonna first stick the socket in a little bit, because I can't quite get the angle I need otherwise. Then I'm gonna put the extension into the socket, and then I'll click it in. So we're gonna use this really thin head 3/8 that we have that has a swivel on it, because the last one we just tried to use in there kind of got jammed in. All right, so that's loose enough now. So now I gotta disconnect this. The last one also got jammed in here, even though we had more clearance. So ideally you're gonna wanna have a swivel head socket, but the good thing is as soon as you break it free, it does come out by hand. So we figured out a solution because we were having trouble getting this back out. What you're gonna wanna do is release this hard line right here. It's held in by 2 clips. You just push it out, and then you're gonna be able to pull this out underneath, and it comes out. So here's the clip. You're gonna wanna push the line out towards the motor, and there's another one towards the firewall up under the wires back there. You're not really gonna be able to see it on the camera, but you push this line out, and then you can lift it up and push it out of the way like you just saw. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and check our stock gap on the plugs we just removed. And it comes out to 0.021. If you don't have a set of feeler gauges, I highly recommend it. Even plugs that come pre-gapped, you should always double check them, because it's a lot easier to check it before you install it and realize you have a problem. Now these NGKs that we got are supposed to be gapped at 0.024. Let's see if that's the case. I can't quite get that in there. Nope. Now this is what I read online, so you can't believe everything you read online. All right, it looks like these are coming in at 0.021 as well. So at least the set that I got these from Napa, but I'll have them linked in the description, most likely to Amazon. So just double check. I've seen some people say they come in at 0.024, but the set I got at least came in at 0.021. So always double check. And I'm gonna show you how to properly gap these just in case you do need to change them. And if you are getting the car tuned, always make sure to check with your tuner at what gap they want you to run your plugs. So this is a tool that is probably overkill for someone that's just changing their plugs every couple of years on 1 or 2 vehicles, but we work on a lot of cars and we have to gap spark plugs all the time. So this is something that we picked up. Now this tool doesn't work for all plugs. For example, the new B58 motors and B48 motors from BMW actually don't fit in here. They have a slightly different design. But how this works is you set the plug in here, you tighten it down, and they have a gap right here where you can stick a feeler gauge through and check it. Now, when you're compressing a plug like this, it's gonna actually spring back a little bit when you release it. So, because we gap plugs all the time to normally 0.022 on BMWs that we're tuning, we'll actually point a 0.015 or 016 in here, tighten it down just snug to that, and then we'll release this, it springs back to the 0.022 gap. So that can take some trial and error. This is one good tool. Now, if you need to spread the gap further or you don't have this tool, don't use one of those dial gauges that you would see on the counter at like an Advanced or AutoZone. Those will mess up your plug. What you want to get is a tool like this that has these little notches right here, and you could definitely make something like this yourself with a grinder. But what you can do, find the size that fits, and then you stick it in this corner here. You want to be very careful not to hit the white part right there, but you stick it in the corner, and then what you do is you leverage it up or leverage it out like this to either close or open the gap. And in this way, you don't risk damaging the electrode or the porcelain or ceramic, whatever the white part is made out of right there, with one of those traditional style gappers. Those are bad, don't use those. This is the kind of tool you want, and we'll have this linked in the description. It works well, we've been using it for a while. But these are just some of the ways you can gap it, but always double check the gap, make sure it's correct. Now, something that's very controversial, and I am sure we are gonna receive comments on this, is whether or not you should use anti-seize on your spark plug. Now, using a very tiny amount of anti-seize probably won't hurt anything. However, NGK actually voids your warranty if you use anti-seize. There's 2 dangers with it. One, I guess really only one danger. It can change the torque spec. So if you put lubricant on there, the torque specs that you're normally given with plugs are assuming you're not using anti-seize. And when you do use that anti-seize, it's very easy to over tighten these. And we have had a spark plug break off. It wasn't one we did, thankfully, but one of our buddies was working on his car. He changed the spark plugs and he snapped the plug off. And fortunately, he was able to get it extracted, but for a while we thought we were going to be doing some major surgery to that car. So that is the danger if you use anti-seize. If you do and you really want to use anti-seize, only use a tiny, tiny bit. Now the advantage of using anti-seize is you are going into an aluminum block and you don't want anything getting seized because it's very easy to strip out threads on aluminum. So that's your advantage of using it. I am not going to use it. I've been reading some things that newer spark plugs are supposed to come with some sort of coating on them already that prevents them from seizing to the block. I've never had issues removing a plug that doesn't have anti-seize. I've removed factory plugs all the time. This car has 120,000 miles on it. The plugs have never been removed, and I don't think there's anti-seize installed on those from the factory. I don't work at a factory. If you work at the Subaru factory and you know that they use anti-seize, leave a comment below. But obviously 120,000 miles, came out no problem. They're a little stiff, but they came right out. So just something to be aware of. It's up to you what you're gonna use. We are not gonna use anti-seize though. Reinstall your spark plug. Always start them by hand. You wanna make sure you never wanna cross thread. Now there aren't many things that you really need to worry about torquing down on a vehicle. However, a spark plug is one thing I always recommend using a torque wrench with. It's very easy to break them off, and you also don't want them too loose. So when you're using a torque wrench, always torque from the handle, and make sure that you're not like supporting it here or anything. I'm just holding it here so it's not twisting and moving, but you want your leverage to come from this point because that's where the torque is calculated, and just go until you get that click. And then torque them down to spec. Yep. Now we're just going to take a little bit of dielectric grease and just stick that into the end of the coil pack. This will just prevent any corrosion issues. And if you guys don't have a torque wrench, I really like these gear wrench ones, and I'll have them linked down in the description. Now we're ready to go ahead and reinstall the ECU. So you're just going to slide this in, push it in as far as it'll go. Make sure you're putting the right one to the right location. And then you can start to rock this down. Make sure you have that nice click. Now line up the bottom of the ECU into the grommet and press that back in place. All right. And we're going to slide this piece back in. Like so. Install the two 10mm nuts. Now we're not going to be reinstalling the airbox because we're getting ready to install an MST air intake, which you can watch that installation in the next video. Now before installing that bottom piece with those two nubs lining it up, you're going to want to pre-install the box around it like so. The cutout goes towards the front. Carefully finagle it in place. Make sure the J-hook on the back is latched in place. Negative side of the battery goes towards the outside of the car. You want to make sure the side of this holder that has like an L bend in it goes towards the front. And there's a hole right on the driver's side of that lower bracket there, and that's where the bottom of that hook goes into. That's it, guys. That's the installation of the spark plugs complete. Now you do have to put your air box back in. However, we're getting ready to install an MST intake onto this car, so definitely check that video out. Thank you guys for watching. The one takeaway I think I will say is have the right size extension. So we really struggled over on the driver's side of this vehicle. Having a 14mm swivel that was designed for these spark plugs I think would really help. So I'm definitely gonna be looking into that, and we'll have some options linked down in the description, and hopefully they'll make the job a little bit easier for you. Other than that, this is really a straightforward job. So hopefully this will help you save some money. I know that dealerships charge around $400 to do the same job. If you're not filming and you have the right size extensions, this could probably take about 45 minutes to an hour. So I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you have any questions, put them down in the comments and we'll do our best to get back to you. Thank you so much for watching.